Rylan had traveled far from Earth, drawn by the mysteries of the galaxy and the endless wonders that lay on planets few humans had ever seen. His current mission was simple in concept but challenging in practice: explore uncharted worlds, document life forms, and report any discoveries. But simplicity rarely existed in deep space. Every planet held surprises, some beautiful, others dangerous. The planet he now stood on shimmered with colors he had never witnessed before. The sky glowed with soft green light, and clouds moved in slow, graceful patterns. Rivers ran like liquid crystal, reflecting hues of violet and gold. Trees towered like giants, their branches twisting in spirals, each leaf glowing faintly in the dim light. It was breathtaking, but the beauty did not erase the caution he always carried. Rylan adjusted his field suit and checked his scanning equipment. The sensors picked up nothing unusual beyond the natural life forms of the planet, until he heard it. A faint, high-pitched cry, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. He froze, listening. There it was again, a sound that was unmistakably that of a child, or at least something that acted like one. Rylan's heart quickened. A lost being on a foreign world could mean danger, but it also meant someone needed help. He moved cautiously toward the sound, careful not to disturb any creatures that might be nearby. The cries grew louder as he navigated through the thick forest. The ground was soft, covered with luminous moss that glowed under his boots. Strange flowers swayed even though the air was still. Rylan's mind raced with possibilities. Who or what could be making that sound? Then he saw it. A small figure crouched beside a glowing bush, trembling. Its skin shimmered like liquid silver, and its eyes reflected tiny moving constellations. The child was unlike any creature Rylan had ever seen. It had small, delicate limbs and a head slightly larger in proportion to its body, as if it were designed to absorb knowledge quickly. It stared at him with wide eyes, fear and curiosity mixed together. Rylan knelt slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Hey," he said gently. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." He wasn't sure the child would understand his words, but tone often traveled farther than language. The child tilted its head, its eyes shimmering brighter. It reached out a trembling hand. Rylan's instincts screamed to approach carefully. He extended his own hand, allowing the child to step toward him. The bond was tentative but real. Trust had begun to form in the quiet of the alien forest. "Where's your home?" Rylan asked softly. The child did not respond in words. Instead, it pointed toward a dense area of trees in the distance. Rylan understood. It wanted him to follow. The journey was not easy. The forest, while beautiful, was full of hidden dangers. Rivers moved faster than expected, and strange creatures darted through the undergrowth. Rylan had to leap across glowing stones, avoiding deep water. He lifted the child when necessary, carrying it across obstacles it could not navigate alone. With every step, the bond between them grew stronger. The child would occasionally reach for Rylan's face, a simple gesture of comfort, and Rylan found himself smiling despite the strain of the journey. At night, the forest transformed. Bioluminescent plants lit up in soft patterns, resembling constellations in the sky above. Rylan made a small camp, shielding the child in a portable tent. He studied the creature closely. Its skin shimmered softly under his lamp, and it hummed a gentle melody, one that sounded like it was trying to communicate. Rylan hummed back, and for a moment the child's eyes brightened with recognition. As dawn approached, the forest's glow dimmed, and Rylan packed up, ready to continue. He could sense the child's energy returning, and it seemed eager to reach its home. Following the direction it had indicated, they traveled deeper into the forest. Rylan noticed subtle signs of civilization, patterns in the moss, small carved stones, and faint trails that suggested intelligent design. Whoever lived here had a connection to the land that was both respectful and intricate. Finally, after hours of careful navigation, they reached the edge of a clearing. Rylan's eyes widened. Before him lay an entire village, but not one he had ever imagined. Platforms of glowing crystal floated above the ground, connected by bridges made of light. The buildings themselves were alive with soft movements, as though the village breathed with a pulse of its own. Strange creatures moved about, carrying out daily tasks, and each looked as if it belonged to this wondrous environment. The child ran ahead, and a group of villagers appeared. They were taller than Rylan expected, with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered in various metallic colors. Their eyes held intelligence and curiosity, and they watched him with careful interest. The child ran into their arms, and the adult's relief was visible. Rylan stepped forward, keeping his hands open. One of the taller figures approached him, producing soft melodic sounds. Rylan mimicked a bow, hoping to show respect. The villager tilted its head and then produced symbols that floated briefly in the air, an alien form of communication. Rylan did his best to respond with gestures, pointing to the child and then to himself. The villagers seemed to understand enough. They offered gestures that indicated food and shelter, inviting him to stay. Rylan accepted, grateful for their kindness. Yet even as he followed them into the heart of the village, he felt an unspoken tension. The way they observed him, the careful measurements of his movements, his responses, and his decisions, hinted that this visit was more than just a chance encounter. Over the next hours, Rylan learned more about the village. The floating platforms were powered by a strange energy, drawing from the life force of the plants around them. The villagers harvested glowing fruits, used crystal tools, and moved with a harmony that suggested a society built on cooperation rather than competition. He marveled at the complexity, feeling both awe and humility. As night fell, Rylan sat with the child beside a glowing tree. The villagers had provided a place for him to rest, and for the first time since arriving on this world, he felt a sense of peace. The child leaned against him, and Rylan realized that this encounter, unexpected and strange, had changed something inside him. He had come to explore the planet, to record its wonders, and perhaps to discover life forms unknown. But now, he understood that exploration was not just about seeing, it was about connection. Helping this child, facing the dangers of the forest, and witnessing the village had opened a path he had not anticipated. As he drifted into a light sleep, he did not know that his actions, the simple decision to help a lost child, were being observed closely. Hidden within the village, unseen eyes watched his every movement, noting his courage, patience, and empathy. What Rylan believed to be a chance act of kindness was, in fact, the beginning of a test that would shape the course of his life far beyond this planet. And so, the first day ended with Rylan unaware of the significance of his journey. Yet even as the stars above shimmered in unfamiliar constellations, he felt a quiet hope. For the first time, he realized that being human meant more than surviving. It meant caring, guiding, and sometimes risking everything for the sake of another. The morning sun of the alien world rose slowly, casting a soft golden glow over the floating village. Rylan awoke to the gentle hum of the platforms beneath him and the soft melodic voices of the villagers. The child, still sleepy, clung to his side, its small silver hand warm and trusting. Rylan smiled down at it. "Good morning," he said softly, though he knew the words were not fully understood. The child chirped back, a sound that made him chuckle. Rylan stepped outside, taking in the full beauty of the village in daylight. The floating platforms stretched across the clearing like islands in a sky-colored sea. Bridges made of pure light connected them, forming pathways that twisted and curved in impossible but stable arcs. Crystalline buildings pulsed with soft energy, reflecting the sunlight like living prisms. Small creatures moved gracefully along the platforms, tending to plants, harvesting luminous fruits, and playing games that seemed to combine movement and music. Despite the strangeness, there was a sense of peace here. Every movement felt intentional, coordinated, and balanced. Rylan realized that the villagers were not just surviving. They were thriving in harmony with their world. He had never seen such a society, and it filled him with both admiration and curiosity. The child tugged at his hand, urging him to follow. Together they walked across a bridge of light to a central platform, where several villagers had gathered. They looked at him intently, producing a sequence of melodic sounds. Rylan listened carefully, mimicking the tones as best he could. One of the villagers responded with a gesture, pointing to the central platform and then toward him. He understood that they were inviting him to observe, to learn, and perhaps to participate in their activities. Rylan spent the morning exploring. The villagers allowed him to observe their daily routines, harvesting glowing fruits from plants that seemed alive with energy, repairing and shaping crystal structures, and tending to small creatures that resembled both birds and fish at once. The harmony of their movements impressed him. No one rushed or competed. Everything was done with care, patience, and cooperation. At first, Rylan thought his presence was merely tolerated. But as he helped the villagers gather fruit and organize supplies, he noticed subtle signs of observation. He was not being watched with suspicion, but with careful attention. Every choice he made, every response to their guidance seemed to be measured. Yet Relan did not feel uncomfortable. He acted naturally, helping where he could and learning where he needed to. By mid-afternoon, the villagers led him to a larger platform, one that appeared to be a meeting area. Here, elders of the community waited. Their forms were taller and more elaborate than the others, adorned with glowing markings that pulsed gently with each melodic sound they produced. Rylan bowed slightly, unsure if it was the correct gesture. One elder extended a hand, pointing first to the child, then to Rylan, and finally to the village itself. Rylan nodded. "I found the child in the forest," he said, using gestures to indicate his journey. The elder tilted its head, then produced a sequence of symbols and sounds that hovered briefly in the air. Though Rylan could not fully understand, the intent was clear. They were thankful, and they recognized the courage it took to help the lost child. The elder motioned toward a path that led to a small building made of glowing crystal. Rylan understood that this was his temporary place of rest. As he walked, he noticed that some villagers followed silently, observing without interference. It dawned on him that his actions were being evaluated, not for punishment, but perhaps for understanding. Inside the building, Rylan settled onto a soft surface that seemed to conform to his shape. The child sat beside him, humming a soft tune that resonated through the room. It was calming, almost magical. Rylan closed his eyes for a moment, reflecting on the events of the day. He had set out to explore a planet and ended up guiding a lost child to safety, and now he was living among an intelligent alien society, learning their ways and customs in ways he could not fully grasp. The next day began with a new challenge. The villagers presented tasks, simple yet designed to test his patience, observation, and creativity. First, he was asked to help gather luminous fruits from a forest grove. Unlike normal fruits, these required careful handling. They responded to touch, glowing brighter or dimmer depending on the gentleness of the approach. Rylan learned quickly. He watched the villagers' movements and mimicked them, letting the child show him the smallest gestures. By the end of the morning, he had gathered the fruits without damaging any, a small but significant achievement. Next came repairing the crystalline platforms. The task seemed impossible at first. Crystals were delicate and required precise alignment, and the slightest misstep could cause instability. Rylan observed the villagers' techniques carefully, noting their subtle hand movements and the way they communicated with the structures. Using both guidance and trial and error, he managed to fix several panels. The villagers observed silently, nodding their heads in acknowledgement, though they offered no direct praise. In the afternoon, a challenge arrived unexpectedly. A small bridge connecting two platforms began to shake violently. Rylan noticed it immediately. A minor energy disturbance in the village's systems had triggered a shift in the balance. Without hesitation, he sprang into action. He directed the child to move to safety and guided nearby villagers to stabilize the bridge, using simple gestures and careful instructions. His natural ability to coordinate others under pressure surprised even himself. The elders appeared shortly afterward. They did not scold or praise him. Instead, they produced a series of symbols that hovered in the air. The meaning was subtle but unmistakable. They were testing not just his skill but his ability to remain calm and make decisions that ensured the safety of all. Rylan felt a quiet pride. Though he did not understand the full significance, he realized that every action mattered, not for reward, but for trust. Over the next few days, Rylan continued to participate in village life. He learned to navigate the energy bridges, care for the small creatures, and communicate more effectively with the villagers. Each task brought new lessons, and each lesson brought a deeper understanding of the world around him. The child remained at his side, a constant companion and guide. Its trust in him strengthened his determination to act wisely and patiently. One evening, as the twin moons of the planet rose above the horizon, Rylan sat beside the child on a platform overlooking the glowing rivers. The village shimmered like a living constellation below them. Rylan spoke softly, not expecting an answer. "I didn't know helping someone could lead to all of this," he said. The child hummed, a soft melody that seemed to respond to his words. For the first time, he felt a sense of purpose beyond exploration. Unknown to Rylan, hidden observers watched from the shadows. Their recordings and measurements focused on more than his actions. They studied his patience, his empathy, and the natural way he took initiative. Each gesture, each decision, each moment of calm under pressure was noted carefully. This was no ordinary assessment. It was a subtle, sophisticated evaluation of leadership potential, a test that Rylan had passed without knowing it. By the end of the week, Rylan began to notice changes in the villagers' behavior. They included him more in their activities, trusted him with delicate tasks, and allowed him to guide small groups in completing work. He remained unaware that these were deliberate trials, designed to reveal qualities that could not be tested in a simple exam. Yet he felt a growing connection, not just to the child but to the community as a whole. It was during one such activity that Rylan realized something important. Leadership, he thought, was not about power or authority. It was about care, listening, patience, and courage. He saw that the villagers, while intelligent and capable, were testing his ability to inspire trust, to organize without domination, and to act decisively for the benefit of others. And though he did not fully understand their intentions, he felt honored to be part of their world. As night fell, the village settled into quiet rhythm. The glowing platforms dimmed slightly, and the air was filled with soft melodies of alien song. Rylan and the child returned to their temporary home. He looked around at the strange, beautiful world that had welcomed him so unexpectedly. "I don't know what tomorrow will bring," he whispered, "but I want to do my best. For you, for them, for this place." And with that thought, he drifted into sleep, unaware that his courage, kindness, and wisdom were shaping a path far greater than he could imagine. The journey had begun with a lost child, but it was leading him toward challenges, responsibilities, and adventures that would test the very core of his humanity and reveal the heroic potential that lay within him. The morning air of the alien village was crisp, carrying a soft hum that seemed to resonate from the floating platforms themselves. Rylan woke to the gentle glow of the crystalline buildings reflecting the rising twin suns. The child was already awake, sitting near the doorway of their temporary home and humming a soft melody that made the air vibrate in harmony. Rylan smiled as he joined the child, realizing that this strange alien world had begun to feel like a small, peaceful home. Rylan's first task that morning was simple, or so it seemed. The elders guided him to a platform where small creatures flitted between glowing plants gathering luminous fruits. "Help gather the harvest," one elder signaled. Rylan nodded, understanding through gestures, and stepped into the field. At first glance, it appeared easy. Collect the fruits and place them in the baskets, but the fruits were unlike anything he had handled before. They responded to touch, glowing brighter or dimmer depending on pressure and angle. If handled carelessly, they could dim permanently or fall apart. Rylan quickly realized that even simple tasks here demanded attention and care. He mimicked the villagers' delicate movements, letting his fingers move gently, almost as if he were dancing. The child guided him, chirping softly and pointing toward the ripest fruits. By the time the baskets were full, Rylan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had not only completed the task but done so in a way that respected the unique life of the planet. Later, the elders presented another challenge. A small structure on one of the platforms needed repair. Crystal panels had shifted, creating instability. The villagers moved around him, silently observing, producing soft sounds that seemed to direct his actions. Rylan studied the panels carefully. He realized that even a slight misalignment could cause a chain reaction, toppling part of the platform. He worked with patience, lifting panels, adjusting their angles, and using subtle hand movements he had learned from observation. It was during these tasks that Rylan began to sense a subtle pattern. The villagers were testing him, not by giving him instructions or demanding results, but by placing him in situations where his decisions, patience, and leadership would naturally emerge. He had been unaware of this, but now he understood. Each step, each small choice was being watched for courage, wisdom, and empathy. The real test, however, came unexpectedly. A deep, rumbling vibration shook the village as the midday suns reached their zenith. Rylan looked up to see a surge of energy in the river that powered the floating platforms. Water that had always flowed gently now rushed violently, threatening to flood the lower levels of the village. The small creatures scattered and the glowing bridges trembled. Panic rippled through the villagers, though they tried to maintain composure. Rylan's instincts took over. "Child, stay here," he called, lifting the small figure to safety. The child clung to him, trusting entirely in his guidance. Rylan assessed the situation. If the river was not redirected quickly, entire platforms could collapse, endangering both the villagers and the child he had promised to protect. Without hesitation, he began directing the villagers. Using gestures, simple words, and careful instructions, he coordinated groups to stabilize critical points on the bridges and platforms. Some villagers initially hesitated, unsure of the human's authority, but as they saw his confidence and decisiveness, they followed his guidance. Rylan suggested placing large crystal slabs as temporary barriers, redirecting the rushing water, and organizing the creatures into safe zones. The challenge tested more than physical skill. Rylan had to remain calm, thinking several steps ahead while keeping everyone safe. He noticed a small group of villagers struggling to lift a heavy panel. He rushed to help, not taking over entirely but offering support while letting them maintain control. He realized that leadership was not about commanding blindly. It was about empowering others, guiding them without forcing them. Hours passed as the village endured the surge. The energy in the river gradually returned to normal, and the platform stabilized. Rylan, exhausted but determined, surveyed the scene. The villagers were safe, the bridges held firm, and the creatures had been guided to safety. For a brief moment, the village fell silent, as if collectively breathing after a near disaster. The elders approached him then, moving with deliberate grace. They did not speak words as humans do, but their melodic sounds carried meaning. Rylan understood the tone: acknowledgement, approval, and recognition. Though they did not explicitly state it, he sensed that his actions during the crisis had revealed his potential. They had observed his patience, quick thinking, empathy, and ability to unite the villagers under stress. Rylan, however, remained unaware of the full significance. He only knew that helping the villagers had felt right, and that the trust they had placed in him was something he could not betray. The child, still clinging to him, chirped happily, sensing the relief in the village. Rylan felt a deep satisfaction, not from recognition, but from knowing that he had done the right thing. In the days that followed, the villagers included Rylan in more activities. He helped manage energy flows for the platforms, cared for young creatures, and guided small groups in their daily tasks. Each challenge was subtle but deliberate, tasks that required patience, problem-solving, and cooperation. Rylan's confidence grew, as did the villagers' trust in him.
Yet he never sought praise.
His actions were motivated by empathy, a desire to protect, and a sense of responsibility toward the community. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the village, Rylan found himself standing on a platform overlooking the glowing rivers. The child sat beside him, humming softly. The village shimmered below them like a constellation brought to life. Rylan reflected on the events of the past week, the lost child, the forest journey, and the challenges he had faced. He realized that this world, so strange and beautiful, had taught him lessons far beyond exploration. He understood now that leadership was not about authority alone. It was about patience, care, and courage, the ability to act decisively while inspiring trust in others. Even small actions could carry immense weight. Returning the lost child had started this journey, but it was his empathy, bravery, and wisdom that would shape the future. Hidden among the platforms and trees, the elders observed silently. They took note of his every movement, every decision, and every reaction to pressure. They recorded the way he guided the villagers, encouraged cooperation, and maintained calm in the face of danger. This was no ordinary evaluation. It was a test of potential for a greater responsibility, one that stretched beyond the village itself. Rylan, of course, remained unaware. To him, each day was about helping, learning, and surviving in a world that was both beautiful and challenging. Yet even in ignorance, he was passing every test with natural skill. His courage, empathy, and decisiveness shone without effort. The child, always by his side, had become more than a companion. It was a mirror reflecting his own growth. Where once Rylan had merely explored, now he protected, guided, and inspired. The bond he shared with the child, and with the villagers, revealed a truth he could not yet fully comprehend. Human qualities of kindness, bravery, and selfless action had power that reached far beyond Earth. As the night deepened, the village glowed under the twin moons, casting long, gentle shadows. Rylan sat quietly, feeling the rhythm of the village around him. Though he did not yet know the full purpose of his journey, he sensed that his choices mattered, not just to the child or the villagers, but to something far greater. The seed of leadership had been planted, nurtured by action, empathy, and courage. And so part 3 of Ryland's journey closed with quiet triumph. He had faced challenges he did not seek, navigated dangers he could not have predicted, and discovered strength he did not know he possessed. The village was safe, the child was protected, and Ryland had begun to understand the essence of leadership, not through command, but through care, courage, and unwavering dedication to others. Unseen, the elders made notes of every decision, every moment of calm and initiative. They whispered among themselves in tones Ryland could not hear. "The human has potential," one said. "He may lead beyond our expectations." Ryland, unaware of this judgment, simply rested beside the child, gazing at the glowing platforms. He felt a quiet pride, not for recognition, but for the knowledge that he had acted rightly. The journey that had begun with a lost child had now become something far larger, an awakening to the potential within him, and the understanding that human qualities could shine even among the stars. The morning light touched the floating village with a gentle warmth. Ryland awoke to the soft hum of the platforms, the child sleeping peacefully beside him. Over the past week, he had grown accustomed to the rhythm of the village, the delicate harmony of its energy flows, and the quiet discipline of its inhabitants. What had begun as a journey to return a lost child had transformed into a series of challenges that tested patience, courage, and leadership without his knowledge. Today, however, the air felt different. The elders had summoned him to the central platform, a place he had visited often but never entered with such intent. The platform glowed brighter than usual, its energy pulsing in steady waves. The villagers parted silently as Ryland approached, their eyes reflecting curiosity and respect. The child ran ahead, chirping joyfully, and then returned to Ryland's side as he stopped before the elders. The tallest elder stepped forward, its form shimmering with intricate patterns of metallic light. Its melodic voice echoed softly, producing sounds that seemed to carry meaning beyond words. Ryland listened carefully, recognizing the tone of seriousness. The elder extended a hand, then gestured toward the village and the child, and finally toward Ryland himself. He understood in an instant that today was different. He bowed respectfully, signaling his readiness to listen. The elder produced a series of floating symbols and sounds that Ryland could not fully interpret, but their meaning gradually became clear through context and observation. The elder was explaining that the village was part of an interstellar alliance, a coalition of intelligent civilizations that safeguarded knowledge, life, and balance across multiple worlds. They were tasked with protecting vulnerable populations, preserving harmony, and preparing capable individuals to take on responsibilities that stretched far beyond their own communities. Ryland blinked in surprise. He had never imagined that his simple act of returning a lost child could carry such importance. Yet as the elder continued, he began to piece together the truth. The villager's careful observations, the subtle challenges, and the crises he had faced were not ordinary events. They were deliberate tests. And he unknowingly had passed them. The child chirped happily, unaware of the conversation, and Ryland felt a protective warmth. I only helped because I wanted to," he said softly, unsure how to convey the depth of his feelings. The elder's melodic response carried a tone of understanding, as if to say, "That is exactly why you succeeded." Another elder joined, producing images that hovered in the air. They showed visions of distant worlds, some struggling with natural disasters, others facing conflict or imbalance. The elders explained that they sought individuals capable of guiding and inspiring others in moments of crisis. They valued courage, empathy, and the ability to make wise decisions under pressure, qualities Ryland had demonstrated naturally. Ryland felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. "You want me to lead?" he asked, using gestures to clarify his understanding. The elders nodded, their energy patterns glowing brighter. "Yes," the eldest responded. "Not for our village alone, but for challenges that affect many worlds. Your actions, decisions, and care for others show the qualities of a leader born not from desire for power, but from responsibility and courage." He sank to a nearby platform, overwhelmed. He had never seen himself as a hero, much less someone capable of leading across worlds. He had explored planets, faced dangers, and cared for others, but always one step at a time, never imagining that his choices would carry such significance. The child climbed onto his lap, chirping softly as if sensing his turmoil. Rylan stroked its shimmering hair, drawing comfort from its trust. He realized that leadership was not about glory or recognition. It was about responsibility, empathy, and the courage to act when others relied on you. His journey had begun with a lost child, and it was this very compassion that had revealed his potential. The elders then shared stories of past individuals chosen for leadership within the Interstellar Alliance. Each had faced tests similar to Ryland's: unexpected challenges, subtle observation, and opportunities to act with wisdom and empathy. They explained that their society could only thrive if those chosen for leadership truly understood the value of life, trust, and cooperation. Ryland listened intently, absorbing each word. He began to see the connection between his actions and the broader picture. Returning the lost child was more than an act of kindness. It was a reflection of his character, one that had proven him capable of inspiring others and guiding them through uncertain circumstances. One elder approached him and gestured toward the village. "The child you returned will grow in trust and knowledge here," it signaled. "And you have shown that you can guide, protect, and empower. This is why we have observed you, tested you, and now reveal the truth." Ryland stood, a sense of clarity washing over him. He realized that the village, the child, and the challenges he had faced were all connected, part of a larger plan to evaluate human potential. He had been unknowingly stepping into a role that demanded responsibility, courage, and wisdom far beyond the ordinary. I understand," Ryland said, bowing slightly. "I never meant to lead. I only tried to help." The elder's glow intensified, as if acknowledging the honesty in his words. "And that is why you are chosen," it conveyed. "True leaders act from empathy, not desire. Courage is measured in actions, not words. You have shown both." The child chirped again, hopping down to point at the distant rivers that powered the platforms. Ryland followed its gesture, realizing that this world, strange and beautiful, depended on balance. Leadership, he thought, was not about command alone. It was about understanding connections, protecting life, and inspiring others to act together. The elders then shared a vision of what lay ahead. They showed Ryland glimpses of worlds where his decisions could make a difference, where guidance, courage, and compassion would be needed to solve problems that no one species could solve alone. They did not demand an immediate answer, but the invitation was clear. He could return to his previous life, or accept a role of responsibility that would challenge him in ways he could not yet imagine. Ryland felt the weight of the choice. Returning home meant comfort and familiarity, yet it also meant leaving behind the opportunity to make a difference on a scale he had never considered. Accepting their offer meant stepping into the unknown, facing challenges far beyond his experience, but also embracing the potential to guide, protect, and inspire countless lives. He looked down at the child, its trust and curiosity a reminder of why he had begun this journey. He thought of the villagers who had taught him patience, observation, and cooperation. He realized that leadership was not a role he sought, but a path that had chosen him through his actions. Finally, Ryland spoke. "I will do it," he said, his voice steady with resolve. The elders responded with melodic tones of approval, their energy patterns glowing brighter in celebration. The child chirped happily, hopping onto his shoulder as if to show support. Ryland felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. The elders guided him to a small, luminous platform that shimmered with energy. They explained that this would be his base of preparation, where he could learn, train, and understand the challenges ahead. The village would remain a home for him whenever he needed guidance, rest, or reflection. Ryland nodded, understanding that this was not just an honor, it was a responsibility. As the day ended, Ryland walked with the child along the glowing bridges, reflecting on the events that had brought him here. He remembered the treacherous forest, the lost child, the challenges of gathering fruit and repairing platforms, and the crisis of the surging river. Each experience had taught him patience, courage, and empathy. Each choice had revealed a quality that now prepared him for leadership beyond this world. He paused to look at the horizon, where distant planets shimmered in the soft light. A quiet determination filled him. He was no longer merely an explorer. He was someone chosen to lead, guide, and protect, not by desire for power, but by the strength of his actions, the honesty of his heart, and the courage of his spirit. And so Part 4 closed with revelation and resolve. Rylan had discovered the true purpose of his journey. He had passed the test he never knew existed, not by seeking recognition but by acting with compassion, bravery, and wisdom. The next steps of his life would challenge him in ways he could not yet imagine. But he now understood that human qualities, empathy, courage, and selflessness could shine brightly, even among the stars for the first time. He felt ready to embrace a destiny far larger than himself, guided by the simple truth that helping others, no matter how small the act, could reveal the potential for greatness within. The twin moons of the alien world hung low in the sky, casting gentle light across the floating village. Rylan stood at the edge of a glowing bridge, the child perched lightly on his shoulder, its small hands gripping his collar in quiet excitement. The village was calm, peaceful and alive with the soft hum of energy flowing through the platforms and crystal structures. For the first time, Rylan felt the full weight of his new reality. He had been chosen. His acts of courage, empathy, and wisdom had proven his potential to lead beyond this village, beyond this planet. And now the decision was his, to return to the familiar comfort of Earth or to embrace a path that would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. Rylan turned to the child, who chirped softly and tilted its head as if sensing the question in his mind. The bond he shared with the small creature had grown deep over their time together. It was not just a child lost in the forest. It was a connection that had revealed the strength and compassion within him. Rylan smiled, stroking the child's shimmering hair. "We've come far together," he said softly. "And now, it's time for the next step." The elders approached, their forms glowing softly with melodic energy. One of them extended a hand, then gestured toward a small platform shimmering with light. This was a vessel, they explained through sounds and floating symbols, capable of traveling between worlds. It was here that he would begin his preparation for the challenges that lay ahead, learning, understanding, and growing in ways that would allow him to guide others across the galaxy. Rylan nodded, understanding without needing words. The decision he had made was not one of desire for adventure or power. It was a decision rooted in responsibility, empathy, and courage. He had been tested, observed, and prepared, not because the elders sought a hero, but because the universe needed someone who acted from the heart. The villagers gathered to bid farewell. The platforms glowed brighter as if in celebration, and the small creatures chirped and fluttered around him. Many of the villagers came forward, offering gestures of respect and trust. They placed small, glowing symbols in his hands, tokens of guidance, protection, and remembrance. Rylan accepted each one with gratitude, feeling the weight of their trust and the connection he had built over the past days. The child climbed onto his shoulder again, chirping in excitement. Rylan laughed softly. "I guess you're coming with me," he said. The elders nodded in approval, acknowledging the bond that had played a key role in his journey. The child had been both a guide and a test, showing that leadership involved care, protection, and the ability to inspire trust. As he approached the shimmering vessel, Rylan took one last look at the village. The platforms floated gracefully above the glowing rivers, the crystal buildings pulsing softly with life. The villagers waved, their gestures warm and filled with emotion. Rylan realized that he was leaving behind more than a place. He was leaving behind a home that had taught him lessons no words could convey. Inside the vessel, the child settled comfortably on a small platform beside him. The interior glowed softly, powered by the same energy that sustained the village. It felt alive, almost as if it were aware of its purpose. Rylan activated the controls, feeling the vessel hum beneath his hands. The child chirped again, hopping from one platform to another, exploring curiously but never straying far from him. As the vessel lifted from the platform, Rylan looked out at the village one last time. The floating islands shimmered like constellations connected by bridges of light. The elders stood at the edge of the central platform, their forms glowing brightly. They produced a series of melodic sounds, a farewell, a blessing, and a promise that he was ready for what lay ahead. The vessel rose higher, gliding through the soft morning light, and then broke through the atmosphere. Rylan watched as the village became smaller, a glittering jewel floating above the alien landscape. He felt a mix of nostalgia and excitement. Though he was leaving behind the safety and familiarity of the village, he was stepping into a destiny shaped by his courage, empathy, and wisdom. The journey ahead would not be easy. The elders had shown him glimpses of distant worlds, planets facing natural disasters, civilizations struggling with conflict, and situations that demanded guidance, inspiration, and decisive action. Rilan understood that his role would be to help, protect, and unite. He would lead not for personal gain, but to ensure that life, knowledge, and harmony could flourish across the galaxy. As the vessel traveled through the stars, Rylan reflected on how it had all begun. A simple act, returning a lost child to its home, had set in motion a chain of events that revealed the depths of human potential. His empathy, courage, and patience had been the key. The village, the child, and the elders had tested him subtly, allowing him to grow naturally into a leader who could guide others through uncertainty and danger. The child chirped and climbed onto his lap, gazing out the window at the passing stars. Rylan smiled, realizing that leadership was not about being alone or commanding from above. It was about connection, trust, and courage. He had learned that even small actions, helping, protecting, guiding, could reveal strengths that mattered far beyond the immediate moment. Hours passed as the vessel glided silently through space. Rylan studied the stars, feeling a sense of awe and responsibility. The universe was vast, filled with challenges and wonders, and he now carried the trust of not just one village, but a potential role in safeguarding countless lives. He knew that every decision, every choice, and every act of courage would be measured not by recognition, but by the well-being of those he guided. The vessel began to approach a larger system of planets, each glowing faintly in the distance. The elders had explained that these worlds were part of the interstellar alliance, where guidance, wisdom, and protection were needed. Rylan felt a quiet determination. He had been tested, he had learned, and now he was ready to embrace a path that required courage, empathy, and responsibility at every step. The child chirped again, as if sensing his thoughts. Rylan laughed softly. "I guess we have a lot to do," he said. The child chirped back, hopping onto his shoulder, and for a moment the vastness of space felt less intimidating. Together they would face whatever lay ahead, guided by trust, courage, and the bond that had begun in the alien forest. As the vessel glided toward its first destination, Rylan reflected on the lessons of the village. He had learned patience from observing their delicate work, courage from facing crises, and empathy from guiding and protecting the child. These were qualities that no training could teach entirely. They were revealed in action, in choice, and in care for others. Rylan knew that the journey ahead would challenge him in ways he could not yet imagine. But he also knew that he was not alone. The trust of the child, the guidance of the elders, and the lessons of the village were with him. And most importantly, he understood that human qualities, courage, empathy, patience, and selflessness could shine even among the stars, revealing potential beyond what anyone might expect. The vessel entered a steady course, gliding past asteroids and distant planets, each one a reminder of the vast universe he had yet to explore. Rylan felt a sense of purpose and calm. He was no longer just an explorer. He was a leader in the making, chosen for his actions, his courage, and his care for others. As the stars stretched endlessly before him, Rylan looked down at the child who slept quietly on a soft platform beside him. He smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility settle comfortably in his chest. This journey had begun with a lost child in an alien forest, but it had grown into something far greater, a path toward leadership, guidance, and the protection of life across the galaxy. And with that, Rylan embraced his destiny. He was ready to face challenges, inspire trust, and lead with courage and empathy. For the first time, he understood fully what it meant to be human, not just to survive, but to protect, guide, and uplift others, no matter how distant or different they might be. The vessel glowed softly as it moved through space, carrying Rylan and the child toward worlds in need, adventures unknown, and a future shaped by the courage of a human who had once simply returned a lost child to an alien village. The stars stretched endlessly, and Rylan felt a quiet joy. The universe was vast. The challenges were many. But he knew this: the strength of humanity, empathy, courage, and selfless action could shine brighter than any star, guiding not just him but countless others across the galaxy. And so, the story of Rylan's journey reached a new beginning, one filled with hope, heroism, and the promise of humanity's enduring potential among the stars.